If you've taken the QBO ProAdvisor certification or you're studying to take it, and maybe you've passed, maybe you haven't, but regardless, you're also feeling like you haven't actually learned how to properly use QBO to work with your clients, then I want you to definitely stay tuned for the rest of this episode. I am interviewing Margie Remmers-Davis, the founder and CEO of Akadian Accounting Education. And they specialize in helping people pass the QBO certification. You learn how to use QBO in your business, and you don't just learn by reading a textbook and watching videos, you learn by doing. So in this episode, I'm going to talk to Margie about how she became an educator in this space, how the company and she keeps up with the changes that QBO continues to roll out, and the comprehensive approach that she takes for learning bookkeeping and QBO. You're definitely going to want to listen to this episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. Let's jump in and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, and welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. I'm Serena Shoup, CPA, a mom of three, and I've been running a virtual bookkeeping business from my home since 2017. You are in the right place if you are a bookkeeper, accountant, or an accounting student, and you believe and know in your heart that your purpose is bigger than sitting in a cubicle. If you're ready to learn some actionable tips and strategies for starting and growing your accounting business, then I hope you stick around. All right. Hi, Margie. How are you today?
I am awesome.
Cool. So welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper podcast. I'm super excited to have you.
I'm delighted to be here.
Wonderful. We'll just start with having you introduce yourself, who you are, how you help people in the event that people don't already know about you, our listener, because you're kind of a big deal in this space.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me. When you hear my story, you'll be like, what?
Then let's hear it. Let's hear your story.
Yeah. So in 2018, I got a text from my husband. We were just about to celebrate our 19th wedding anniversary. We'd been together for 20 years or almost 20 years. And he sent me a text and said that he wrote me a letter and would I like to read it? And I was like, yeah. And so he told me where it was. And so I read the letter. And in this letter, he told me that he didn't want to be married anymore, that all of the future plans that we had weren't his plans anymore. And that, basically he'd been living a lie all this time. And it was a punch in the gut. I had been a stay-at-home mom the whole time we'd been married. It was always my dream to be a stay-at-home mom. And so once I found my guy, I said goodbye to corporate and said, this is what I'm going to do. I raised my kids. This happened 10 days before I took our oldest off to college. And I was like, oh crap. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? We had gotten married later in life. And so he already owned the house. So it was his house. So I was basically in one fell swoop, in one day reading this letter. He didn't have the balls to talk to me. Just in this letter, my whole life was taken away from me. Where I lived, what I did with my day, my finances, everything was just taken away. And I was like, oh crap, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And like so many people, so many women in my situation, well, I'll say first that the first thing that I did was I started applying for jobs. And then I thought at the time, I'm still smart. I'm still, I'm still technical. I'm still a good person. I'm sure that, I could just step right back into what I was doing. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that when you're a middle-aged woman with a 20-year gap in her resume, people aren't all that excited about you. And so so many women, especially in my situation, I started seeing ads for bookkeeping. And at the time, there was just a plethora of these programs. And anyway, and so I picked one. And if I said who it was, you would know exactly, you would know. And so I was like, I guess I'm going to be a bookkeeper. I had always been really good with numbers. I had managed all of our daily finances. I was a treasurer for different organizations. Like I'm just like a mathy type person and money math and all that stuff. I'd had a job as an office manager in 1993 where I used Quicken. And so I was like, I've got this. This is going to be easy for me. So I signed up for this program. And the first thing that the guru said was to go get your QBO certification, your ProAdvisor certification. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'll go do that. So I went and I started studying the Intuit material. And like so many people who studied that material, like it just was overwhelming and confusing. And I just kept thinking to myself, I could do such a better job than this. Because in my former life, before marriage and kids, when I had my career, I worked for a medical software company. I did training. I was an instructional designer and training manager for their proprietary software. I traveled across the country teaching people how to use the software. Then I moved in-house and developed our internal training programs. It was proprietary software, so we couldn't like hire somebody that knew how to use it.
Right.
So we had trained the trainer, and like eventually we were training all of the new employees. And so that was like my whole life before was training on software. And so as I was going through the Intuit training, I was just like, this is terrible. And at the time I was like, I can't chase that squirrel, right? Like I just have to focus on my own life and my own business, like get out there. So I did that. I powered through. I got my certifications. I went out into the world. I started getting clients. And I also at the same time joined bookkeeping groups to like get support. Like I didn't know what I was doing, right? So to like get support in what I was doing. And what I just heard over and over and over were people struggling with that test.
Yeah.
And like there was just so much pain that I couldn't stand it anymore. I was like, fine, I will create a course. So I created a course. I threw it up online. I figured out I had joined BNI to like build up my business. And so one of my BNI buddies was a tech guy. And I said, I need to know how to put this behind a paywall. So we did that. And that's how we were born. We initially, like people just loved our certification courses because I make things fast, fun, and easy. And we taught them exactly what they needed to know in an easy way to learn it and actually do it. The thing that sets us apart here at Akadian that I always say is that we teach by doing. So we're not just like throwing you a wall of words. We're actually going to teach you how to actually do it. And so people would go in and actually do exercises and practice what they're learning. And then they would go in with full confidence and they'd be able to ace the test. And so people begged us. So I did just the basic level at first. Now it's called level 1, but at the time was basic, and then advanced, which is now level 2. And then eventually payroll. People just ate it up. So eventually I said, well, I have found my calling. I have found like where I need to be. So I gave up my bookkeeping practice and now I do this full time. And I can keep talking about the evolution of the company if you want, but I tend to talk a lot. So if you...
I have questions. I've been jotting down notes as you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how I always tell my guests, like, we're just going to start out with your background and your story, and I'm going to have questions from it that we're going to deep dive, and it's going to, this is what creates the episode. So
let's do it.
Let's do this. Okay. So one of the things that came up for me while you were talking is like, all the changes in QBO. And by the way, this is how I ended up where I'm at too, is being in Facebook groups, seeing what people are struggling with, and no one in the space had an answer for it or a resource. So I created it. Now, lots of people have resources, but we're here to stay, right?
Right. We're the OG.
Yeah. So you said you did that. You started your bookkeeping business when?
2020.
2020. Okay. So yeah, you were around the same time. I think I started mine around 2017. and then didn't start this brand until 2020. But yeah, same methodology of like just observing the marketplace and seeing what people are actually struggling with. And as your listener, as you're listening, that's how you should be going about any type of business, really.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
So one of the things you were talking about is the QBO certification. How are you guys, or how do, and maybe this is part of why you went full time and gave up your bookkeeping practice, but how do you stay on top of all of the changes with QBO and the interface, all of that? Like right now, I don't envy you.
Yeah. Right now, it's a difficult time to be a trainer in this space.
Yeah.
Internally, we call it chasing the dragon because like we don't work for Intuit and like we're just constantly, chasing after what are they changing? What are they doing? When we were just doing the certifications, it's easy because they publish every year. This is the stuff you need to know for the test. And so we were able to just, okay, what is it that they want people to know? And then we just repackage it in our fast, fun, and easy way with like our courses are all gamified. There's bells and whistles and woohoos and all of that kind of stuff, as well as reinforcement materials. And like I said, we have hands-on practice. So you're not just reading about it, but you're actually doing it. It's all video based. So for the certifications, we just repackaged what they were already had. So that was pretty easy. The next product that we launched after that, what we heard was, again, this is like a huge thing for your listening audience. Like everything we've done is because we heard pain, right? We heard pain and we said, okay, we can address this pain. And the pain we heard after we developed the certifications was, well, I passed the test, but I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so because I had all sorts of experience with creating hands-on exercises, and in the certification courses, you learn the feature, just like they say, okay, here's a feature you have to learn. And then we have an exercise that has a scenario and you just do that thing. But what people needed was some kind of like a packaged experience. They're like, yeah, but what do I actually do as a bookkeeper? Like, I know how to use this feature, but what do I do? And so we created what we call the QBO Gym, which we like to say we train bookkeepers like NASA trains astronauts with simulations. So we have in the QBO Gym an entire year's worth of you being a bookkeeper for a fictitious business owner. And all along the year, you're doing the things that a bookkeeper would do. So you sit down and you process bank feed transactions and you send invoices and you pay bills and you record payments and you run reports and you do reconciliations. Like you do all of it. Like it's shocking to me, Serena. It's shocking to me how many people want to be a bookkeeper and have never reconciled a bank account before in their lives. Like yeah. I'm old school. I used to reconcile my bank accounts when I was a kid. I always had a bank account and you would get the statement and on the back of the statement was a form.
Yep.
Where you could like fill it. And I always did that because I'm like a crazy weirdo math person. I've been reconciling, and then I learned Quicken, like I said, in 1993, a million years ago. And so like, to me, it was so normal, but then I have so many students who have never reconciled a bank account before, don't even like understand what it means. Mm-hmm. So you get to reconcile bank accounts over and over and over in the QBO Gym. And then every month, we call it the gym because it's exercises and it's like this whole this whole theme. But we have a section called strength training, and every month in strength, it's not a calendar month. It's like a month in the life of the business owner.
Right.
But every month he encounters something that he has to use some kind of QBO feature. And so like my favorite issue is he gets a job with a wedding planner to do the landscaping for these two different weddings. And in these two different weddings, he has to, like, different things happen on the job that he has to track, and he wants to compare his profitability between these two wedding landscaping jobs. And, things break, like a tree falls over, which costs extra money to bring him, like all this stuff happens. And so they're learning the projects feature in QBO. So anyway, so we have all of that in the QBO gym. Now, this ties back to your questions, like how do we chase the dragon? And it's very difficult. It's very difficult. For example, QBO just got rid of the tags feature, and we had a whole strength training issue that was all about tags and why you would want to use them. So we had to reconceptualize that issue and, rewrite it and rebuild everything and
find a new solution for people that are using tags.
Exactly. Get new animation videos done and all of that stuff. And yeah, so we have a team. We have a team of volunteer students who go through, we call them our ACEs, the Akadian Course Excellence Team. And they're the ones that are tasked with flagging us when there's a thing that has changed, like, the invoice looks totally different now. And so we have internal processes. We're like, okay, what exercises use the invoice? And then we have a team that goes in and recaptures all of the screenshots. And yeah, it's a giant effort.
That's really good to hear, though, that you do have a process for tracking that and making sure that your program is always as up to date as possible.
Absolutely.
That's one of those things, and one of the reasons why I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of creating a program around a certain software, because I already know that's going to be a struggle. And I'm like, I don't want to dedicate the time to that.
Yep.
But yeah,
that's modern life, unfortunately.
Yeah. So
we've looked into AI tools, by the way, that would like notice and tell us, or notice and update, and it's just not there yet. So right now it's all humans doing it.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe we'll have some kind of like AI thing. But yeah, right now it's just a team of dedicated humans that go in and update everything for us.
Yeah. So the other question I had too was, how has the QBO certification and training changed over the years since when you began this process? What is different now in their training that you're seeing?
Yeah, so different. So when I first got my certification in spring of 2020, the training was based on a group of features, and I think there were like 8 modules, where like there was a module on signing up for QBO and all the different subscriptions, and there was a module on banking, and there was a module on reports, and all these different topics. And so you would study for one thing, and then you would go take the test for that thing. So I launched my first course in August of 2020. What I did not know, because I was brand new, is that every year in November, Intuit completely changes their whole, their whole deal. They changed all of the certification, tests and materials and all that. And I had really rapid success. So I like to call it, I always say that it's like ants on a log. So like you see a couple of ants and then you turn over the log and there's like, whoa, there's so many ants. That's what happened to me. Like I knew that people were complaining about the training and wanting to get certified. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to put this out there. And then it wasn't until I turned over the log, like when people was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So that all happened at the end of August, beginning of September of 2020. I did not know that at the end of October, they would be switching over everything. And I thought, oh, okay, so I'm going to not have, I still had my bookkeeping business then. So like it wouldn't have been a disaster, but I was like, okay, I might not have this business anymore, because the only thing that's necessary to put me out of business is Intuit being really good. And so the next year, they totally changed it up so that they had just 5 sections, but it was all mixed up. So sometimes there would be like banking questions in section 2 and banking questions in section 3. I'm like, which one? Like, how do you know where the training ends and and I understand the logic of why they did it that they were, because when I took the test, there were like module 2 had 5 questions and module 7 had 14 questions. And so they did that to kind of spread it out, but it just made it really even more difficult for people, which meant that my business just continued to boom. Now, last year, they hired a new person to do all of the Intuit to redo all of the Intuit training. And she came from another company, which we all know.
Gusto. I'll just say it.
Gusto. Yeah, she came from Gusto.
I love her, by the way. I loved all the videos that she did in Gusto.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're leaving? I don't use QBO, so.
Yeah. So, and everyone praised her work there. And I guess Intuit knew that they needed help. And so again, this past year, she came on board. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see what she's going to do. And I have to say, like, it is very much an improvement over what it was before. And, she is super cute. She's so fun to watch.
She's actually a really good human too. I've met her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
she's really cool.
Yeah. And she's got a lot on her plate. The challenge is that Intuit is not teachers. What they do is they present the information. They don't teach you the information.
Right.
And I'm so grateful that they present the information. Like it's like the difference between learning from a textbook and learning from a teacher. Mm-hmm. Some people can learn from a textbook and be just fine. And other people need a teacher to guide them and help them and point out and give them like reinforcement activities and pull out like what they need to do and give them hands-on exercises to actually do the thing. Intuit does have, they used to call them ProAdvisor challenges. Now it's just a section in the training that I think it's called Check It Out, where they do have you go into the sample company and like do a thing, like you're learning the thing. But it's not for every single concept. Right. That's really
very high, like it's very high level.
Yes.
It's not, like you said before, it's not going to, like, you can pass the certification without actually being able to do bookkeeping.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I know really good bookkeepers that can't pass the certification.
Oh my gosh. My very first year, I had 30-year CPAs taking my test, and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is harder than the CPA exam. I was floored. I never believed that somebody who'd like been a CPA for decades would find my courses, helpful or useful. It still surprises me. Yeah. I always think.
Well, I can tell you why, because CPAs, we learn how to do journal entries and nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So anyway, so now the training it's different. They now have 2 ways that you can get certified. They have an in-course method and a test out method. The in-course method requires you to they have 5 modules, and you have to go through the modules and you have to answer these little knowledge check questions. As you answer the questions, it unlocks the final exam, and then you can take the final exam, and you can take it as many times as you need to in order to pass that section. And then, or they actually call them courses. Each individual one is a course. And then you take the 5 courses that are associated with the certification you want. And then after you've done those 5, then you get your certification. So, and then the test out exam is timed. You have 5 hours to do it, and you have to do all 5 sections in one sitting. So I do have a resource. I don't know, like I have a guide. We call it our everything doc. Internally, we call it the everything doc. It's everything you ever wanted to know about the QuickBooks Online ProAdvisor certification, Academy and certification. So awesome. Your listeners can get that. It's Akadian.com, AKADIAN /everything. And that's awesome. How you get the everything doc.
Thank you. We
So
will
yeah,
also
and it
link that
goes
in the show
into
notes.
all sorts of, what's that?
I said we'll also link it in the show notes for anyone
That
who
would be
is
amazing.
driving or
Yeah. So that goes over everything, like how to sign up for a QuickBooks Online accountant account, how to, which is different than a regular subscription that business owners get, what's different about it, how it works, how to find the free training that Intuit offers inside the ProAdvisor Academy, how to work through it. It's kind of tricky. They host it on, it's an instructional design platform. And it's tricky to like understand like what buttons to click where. And so we talk in the guide, we talk all about that. We talk about the rules for taking the test. And then we talk about how, like, when you're actually taking the test, there's certain things like you can't go back and review your answers. So, which is another change from when I took my original test. But like as soon as you answer the last question, then boom, it just tells you your score, which is a little different than what it used to be before. Like you would finish it and then it would say, okay, you can look at all of your answers and review them and then submit them when you're ready. And they don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So this is so comprehensive. I'm impressed with what you're doing over there. So one of the things that I also was curious about is, and I guess we could cut this out if you didn't want to talk about it, but you used to be called Fast and Easy QBO, and now you're Akadian. So walk us through the decision behind that and all of the things.
So interestingly enough, we were never called Fast and Easy QBO.
Oh,
People just thought that we were. When I created my bookkeeping company, I called it Crystal Clear Cash Flow. That was the name of my company. And when I created Fast and Easy QBO, that was like a product. It was not the name, it was never the name of my company.
right.
It was just like, these are the Fast and Easy QBO, that's my series of courses. And I'm still over here going to be doing my bookkeeping stuff.
Yeah.
But like it was just market pressure, like everybody thought. And I kept trying to say, okay, Macintosh is the is the product and Apple is the company. Like it's the same thing. Fast and Easy QBO is the product. Crystal Clear Cash Flow is the company. But it was just like the market, just that's how we knew that's how they knew us, as Fast and Easy QBO. We had to change that when we stopped focusing just on QuickBooks Online, which I always knew that eventually that we would be there. You know, like I always thought, okay, well, Fast and Easy QBO is one product line and Fast and Easy Zero is another product line, or, you know, like whatever. But we strategized, we knew that our next move was the bookkeeping and accounting education. And I can tell you how that evolved if you'd like.
Yeah.
That might be your next question. So we had developed the super popular certification courses. And then we developed the QBO Gym, which, you know, people were like, you know, I can't get a job without experience and I can't get experience without a job. And we're like, here, we'll give you a year's worth of experience. We actually give you, there's actually 2 years worth of the gym, but they're very different. So the year one of the gym is very step-by-step. This is exactly what you do. And then year two is the same things, but you have to figure it out on your own. You have to like do it. And then what year two also introduces is AI Craig. So Craig's our fictitious business owner. And now in year two, you're actually conversing with him through our little AI agent, asking for documents and asking clarifying questions. You know, he'll like some of the things will be like a handwritten note that you'll get from him. You can't read it. So you have to go to AI Craig and ask him. And at the end of year one, you get a certificate that says you have a year's worth of experience using QBO. And the same with year two, at the end, it'll say you have a certificate that says you have 2 years of experience. So all that's great. We thought this is a wonderful product and we're going to go out and we're going to start selling it to accounting firms. And we actually hired a full-time person, to go knock on the doors of accounting firms and say, hey, look at this amazing training we have. Don't you want to use it for your staff, for your bookkeeping, you know? And what we heard again, listening over and over and over was, but do they know bookkeeping? But do they know accounting? But do they know, do you teach debits and credits?
Mm-hmm.
And we just heard it so much that we finally, like we couldn't deny it anymore. So we're like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. And so we had to rebrand, as Akadian Accounting Education so that we're more broad. So that does open up the door if we wanted to work with other softwares, which we would love to if you're listening. And so we became more broad. The term Akadian actually comes from the Akadian Empire, which is the birthplace of bookkeeping in Mesopotamia. They they were like the first records of people counting sheep. Merchants, would count their stuff. So so that's how Akadian was born. And that's how we developed our newest offering, which is Bookkeeping Fast Track, which it was specifically designed with the accounting firms in mind so that they could train up either their own staff, so they could have a path for maybe somebody who's not a bookkeeper that's on staff that wants to be a bookkeeper,
Mm-hmm.
or they want to make sure that the bookkeepers they do have, we wanted it to be less than 40 hours so they could hire a person, or somebody could, go through it when they first come on board and be able to finish it their first week on the job. And then if they wanted to, like, we have this standard now of what a bookkeeper should know and be able to do. And so they could hire one of our graduates. If they don't want to train them themselves, they can just hire one of our graduates to, work with them and guarantee that they know that they're being trained correctly in, and it's forward. It's Bookkeeping Fast Track was designed to be tax aware. Like it is designed for bookkeepers working with accountants. And we created our tax advisory council, and they helped us refine what it is they want to receive from the bookkeepers so that they have less work to do and they can just focus on the stuff they're good at rather than focusing on, cleaning up the books or cleaning up messes that somebody didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
Which happens all the time, as you know.
Yes. And that Bookkeeping Fast Track is centered around doing all these tasks in QBO, I'm assuming?
The purpose of the course is to teach basic bookkeeping and accounting in the modern age. Okay. So it's not like what you did in school, with, journal entries and T accounts and all that stuff. Okay. So it is about bookkeeping in the modern age, and we do use QuickBooks Online to demonstrate what we're talking about.
Okay.
But it's not a course to teach QuickBooks Online. Like we could just as easily plug in a different software as I do like the demos. Mm-hmm. It's just that currently QuickBooks is the one that has the free demo company that you can use to demonstrate. So like everything that they do as they're learning, they learn how it affects the books. Once they learn debits and credits, which that's not the first thing, by the way, but they learn the basics and foundations of what they would be doing as a bookkeeper. Then they look under the hood and then they say, oh, okay, how did what I just do affect the books? And so they have to look at the transaction journal. After they understand debits and credits, they look at the transaction journal to see that. Mm-hmm. Then they hop over to the reports and say, what did I just do? And how did it affect the profit and loss? How did it affect the balance sheet, right? So they're always seeing how everything connects. And that's one thing that people have said, because there are a lot of bookkeeping courses out there. But one of the things, besides ours being fast, fun, and easy and gamified and like all that good stuff, that's one thing that people have said over and over and over about us is that we focus on the why so that people understand really, really deeply how what they're doing affects other things.
Yeah.
And that, of course, makes troubleshooting easier, too, because on the other end, you're like, well, this is not right because you know what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then you can backtrack and say, oh, well, this is what it was supposed to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that learning model. Huge
Awesome.
fan. Because
Yeah,
if you can,
yeah,
if you understand the foundations of accounting and bookkeeping, you should be able to action it in any software. It's
precisely.
just a matter of learning the interface of that software. The thing that's happening in the background should be the exact same thing across all the softwares if it's a true double entry accounting system.
Precisely. Precisely. The other thing too is that this is how you're going to protect yourself against AI. This is like a big thing that I talk about a lot lately, is because AI is going to come in and it's going to do all of the nitty gritty, like all of the tedious stuff, like all of the brain dead stuff, all the clicking of buttons, where you don't have to really think. That's what AI is going to take over. But it still requires a human who understands what it's supposed to be to catch the mistakes of the AI. Because for a long time, the AI will still make mistakes or will not be able to distinguish what this transaction is for. And so if we can train people at that deeper level, so that they really understand, then they can be the ones, then they're going to be secure. Like then AI is not going to replace them. Like then they're going to be actually in demand because they understand it and can train and correct the AI as necessary.
It's the same reason people that can do cleanups
Yeah.
they will be protected. Even QuickBooks Live can take everyone's actual bookkeeping jobs just like AI, but it's people that know how to do a cleanup, know how to understand what things should look like. Our jobs are going to be protected. So that's the next level up. Which you guys also have a QuickBooks
We
cleanup
all,
course, right?
yes, we
Okay.
also have, this one is specific to QuickBooks Online.
It's the only thing
It
I've
is,
ever had to clean up. So
what's that?
I said, well, that's the only system I've ever had to clean up.
And you don't even use QBO.
Well, I have to clean it up in order to transition them to
Right.
zero. It's a lot of times it ends up just being a fresh start because it's such a
Oh,
mess.
yeah.
But
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So we do have a QBO cleanup course. I recognized that we needed a cleanup course. And Corey Jankowski, who used to work for Intuit as a cleanup specialist, she and I came up through the same, bookkeeping guru. And she posted in our student group, she's like, I'm learning so much about cleanups. And like, I really feel like I should teach this. And, do you think I should put together a course just for cleanups? And so I called her and said, hey. So we partnered with her to develop our cleanup course. And the beautiful thing about the cleanup course is that we don't just teach you how to do the cleanup, because that's important. I mean, that's important. You want to know how to do the cleanup fast and efficient. It's never going to be fast, but in the most efficient way possible. So that, because a lot of times if you're doing the cleanup and you're not doing things in the right order, then you're going to like break things and go back and have to like do them again. Mm-hmm. And so she teaches you how to do it in a very specific order that prevents you from doing that. And so it just knocks everything out. But the most important thing about the cleanup course, what people love about it the most, is that it teaches you how to do a diagnostic review and avoid scope creep. So a really common thing, this, like I don't have to tell you, but your audience knows this too, but a very common thing is you get a new bookkeeping client and you don't realize the volume of cleanup that you have to do before you can even do your job that they hired you to do.
Yeah.
So what she teaches is how to do that without, like, how to see the problems and know how long it's going to take you and be able to price it so that you don't have scope creep, so that you can identify the issues, highlight them to the business owner. We teach them how to actually present the findings to the business owner in a way that the business owner gets it. Mm-hmm. Because if you just say to a business owner, well, I see that none of your accounts have been reconciled. Well, they don't care. Yeah. they don't know what that means. Like, that's bookkeeping speak, But if you say something more along the lines of, if these records don't match what is in the bank, then you're not making decisions accurately, and likely you're paying more taxes than you need to be because the numbers aren't correct. And
Right.
so when you talk more in the business, so we have all about that. They actually, because Akadian is all hands-on, they actually do all of this. So as Corey's teaching them a certain aspect of it, they then go and do that. You learn how to do a diagnostic review. So you go do a diagnostic review and you post that, you get feedback on it. And then the best part, my favorite part of the cleanup, is the final project. So we have a file that is really, really messy that they then actually go and they do a cleanup. Nobody, there are other cleanup courses like this out there in the world, but we are the only cleanup course where you actually get to clean up and actually do it. So
Yeah.
all along the way you're doing it. So you get this messy file, you do a diagnostic review on it, you learn how to price it and practice like telling the business owner. Then you actually clean it up in, like I said, the most systematic, efficient way possible. And then you really get that experience under your belt. So
Oh, I love that. That is so
yeah,
comprehensive. That's amazing.
yeah, I love it too.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple more questions before we wrap up, just because I
All
have
right.
a hard stop. Number one, if someone decides to go through your bookkeeping fast track program, do they get basically in a directory for firm owners to hire them? Like, or do you make those connections? What does that process look like?
Oh, that is an excellent question. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So we have in alignment, in congruence, in like hand in hand with Akadian is our website. It's called Booksmatch. And Booksmatch serves two purposes. So one purpose is it is our proprietary dashboard that keeps track of all of the knowledge and skills that a student has gained as they're going through the products. Now, as I'm speaking right now, it only reflects their activity in the QBO gym, but we are working like before the end of the year, maybe before this episode gets released, we are developing a dashboard that's comprehensive that has all of our what we call our core curriculum. So bookkeeping fast track and the gym and cleanup, so that it's a dashboard that basically shows how well this person is doing. So at first, like one of the purposes it does is it allows you to compare yourself to other people. So if you've got like that little competitive edge, you can, try and like, be on the leaderboard or whatever. But the other purpose that it serves is for people who are looking for bookkeepers. Then they can sign up as a recruiter. They can go in and select from the top people, because again, they're fighting to be on the leaderboard. And you can go in and you can look at the profile of an accountant. And the beautiful thing about it is what just like sets it, like there's nothing out there like this, is that it actually shows you how well the bookkeeper knows their stuff. If you apply for a job, then you give them a resume. What's on that resume is just, what you said about yourself.
Yep.
If you pass a test, if you have a certification, it just means that you know how to pass a test. Although our coming assessment is going to be different than that. But most certifications just say, I just know how to pass a test. And then if you say, oh, I have 30 years of experience, well, that just means you're old. It doesn't mean you're good. So the beautiful thing about Booksmatch is because it's showing all of the stats, it's showing that the person actually did the thing. Remember, Akadian's all about the doing, not just about the learning. It's showing that they didn't just learn this stuff, but they actually did this stuff, So people can recruit from the Booksmatch directory. And also, of course, they can contact us for individual help with placement. We can also do that.
Awesome. That's such a great resource to know about. I get a lot of my students that go through my program to build their business. They get to a point where they're ready to hire, but they don't know, who they can trust to hire, who actually knows their stuff. And then there's lots of other bookkeepers that end up getting a lot of cleanup jobs and they need to outsource that. So That's a great resource to know about. And that is for people who want to recruit from that space. Is there a website that we can link in the show notes, or
Yep.
how do they?
Yep. It's
Okay.
booksmatch.us. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. Can I talk about the assessment? Because that leads right into it.
Yeah.
I'm super, this is like the most exciting thing that we have coming up. And I would hope that by the time this is released, we might have it ready. We'll definitely link it in the show notes when it's ready, is we are developing a comprehensive assessment. And the reason that we're doing this is because we have Bookkeeping Fast Track, and we have, they go through the course and they know how to do a lot of stuff. But we needed a final way to test that they really know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And like I said, if you, most tests today, just prove that you can take a test. We've all taken tests our whole life, and some of us just figured it out. And, tests are always written a certain way. And if you understand that, then you can just pass without actually knowing anything. On the other hand, if you, with standard tests, if you get a question wrong, it's not necessarily because you don't know the information. Right. It could be because you misread the question, you didn't understand what they were asking, maybe English isn't your native language, or maybe you just clicked the wrong button, or if it's a short answer thing, you typed it and there was a typo and you clicked the return button and submitted. There's so many reasons why. So we are developing a comprehensive, adaptive, conversational bookkeeping assessment. So what this was going to do is you are talking to an AI agent, and it's conversational. So it's as if you're having a job interview and you're talking to the person, and they're just like when you're hiring people, you're asking them questions about bookkeeping. The agent is asking them questions about bookkeeping. If they get a question wrong, then the agent recognizes, well, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't know. So then it'll give you another opportunity, just like you would if it were in a conversation, right? It's oh, I think you didn't understand the question. Let me phrase it again. Mm-hmm. And then based on your answer, it's adaptive. So if you really know your stuff, it's going to ask you progressively harder questions. And if you don't know your stuff, then it's going to ask you easier questions. And then at the end, it's going to give this comprehensive report for a hiring manager, for you, if you want to test out of Fast Track, or if the accounting firm maybe wants to send their people, see where it'll tell you where your holes were. Mm-hmm. So, oh, you didn't really know this, and it's going to be free. We're going to give it away for free to accounting firms. So
that's amazing. Yeah. That's so awesome. That's how the CPA exam is. It's adaptive. Yeah. But yeah, it's been adaptive for all these years, and that's part of why it's it's really hard to pass, especially if you know what you're doing. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I am so glad we had this conversation, and I'm able to let people know, if people don't know about you, where is the best place to connect with you? On YouTube, on socials? Where would you like people to go?
So if you want to connect with me personally, the best place is LinkedIn. But if you want to connect with our community, if you are just looking for a place to hang out, if you really want that hands-on practice, we have a free Facebook group. It's called the QBO Gym Locker Room. So the QBO Gym is the paid product, but the Locker Room is the Facebook group where we hang out, and you get a free course. You get hundreds of exercises that you can practice. We have a free class every Friday. We call it Free Class Friday, where I get on there and teach you something with rotating topics. You get a free exercise the week, and you get a community and all of that stuff. So we'll give you the link to that, but it's also Akadian.com/locker room, and that'll take you to the Facebook group. So we would love to have anybody listening join us in the locker room. That's where the magic happens.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for coming on here, Margie. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's been a delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shu. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout, and you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.